All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Beezley from History and Foreign Languages, and this is Hayden Richardson, who is not a history major. He's actually political science with a history and econ minor. And as Monty Python, Flying Circus, they would say on that, now for something completely different, something humanity. So, Hayden?
All right, can everybody hear me? Because I like to wander, so if I walk away from the mic, I'll make sure you can hear me. I was very intimidated when I came in here because there's a lot of analytics, a lot of big words like Machiavellianism and all that kind of stuff. And I'm here to talk to you about the social and cultural impact of memes. Because I finished up History 434, which is social and cultural history going from the Civil War forward. We were tasked with picking an element of today's culture and really dig into it, chronicle the history, and come up with the important elements of it. And I thought this was a joke. I gave this to Dr. Beezley as a joke, and as God's sense of humor as it is, he said, you know what, you're gonna do that. And so I was doing it. And so I actually looked into what is a meme. And so going back to the origins, the word meme was first ever used in a book by the atheist apologist, Dr. Richard Dawkins. He used it in quote saying, a meme is a unit of culture such as tunes, ideas, catchphrases, clothes, fashion, ways of making pots or building arches. If you look on Merriam-Webster, there's two definitions, one of which basically syncs up with this, of an idea, behavior, style, or usage that spreads from person to person within a culture. And then the second definition, the more modern definition, if you will, is an amusing or interesting item, such as a captioned picture or video, or genre of items that is spread widely online, especially through social media. So then me being me, I wanted more information, so I went back to the actual etymology of the word that Dawkins used. The English word is gene, obviously, meaning something that is passed on. He was referring to biologically. And then the Greek word mimeia, meaning that which is imitated. This lines up originally with the very first definition. Now, how did we get from that to pictures of cartoon frogs and bears? That was my question. How did we get that? So going with the original definition, we have what I call the historical era. If you think back through history, basically anything in history could be described as the word meme. First thing you see on there is cave paintings. These tell the story and history of a culture, but more importantly, how do you survive? How do you track the beast? How do you attack the beast? You don't go and try to fist fight a buffalo. You'll use spears, arrows, and the like. The second picture being an excerpt from the Veda, which is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, text of any religion in Hinduism. But it could, if you want to make it monotheistic, the original Torah, the Hebrew text. These are moral standards. This is our history. This is how we live. This is how we're meant to live. That's what it's meant to portray. And even going all the way as modern as something like Beowulf, which is what that picture is meant to represent. These stories, though they're more entertaining in their actual purpose, still give you morals, still give you the purpose, still give you a code of honor that you are to live by. But when did this shift go from this very, very historical definition to the really amusing definition we get today? The first step towards this is what I call the pre-modern era, starting around the early 1920s. That picture dead there in the middle, in case you didn't attend school. I was everywhere in public school for me, even in the year 2002 to 2021, is Kilroy. How many of you have seen Kilroy before? Show of hands. Okay, it is still prevalent. I found out this was very, very big in the world wars, especially World War II. During the rubble, during all the fighting and chaos, US soldiers would put this on a wall, so that way if a passing soldier saw it, they knew the US had been there, and it was kind of an amusing, uplifting thing. Hitler found out about this and was so dedicated to it that he thought Kilroy was the name of a US agent embedded in the German government. A picture of a bald man with a big nose caused Hitler to investigate his own government, just from an amusing picture. I think that's very, very telling. Just like if you type 5318008 on a calculator, it's funny. I'm not looking at the computer, I know that by memory. Because some of us were children that had calculators, and some of us never really stopped being children. And we know that if you type that number and flip it upside down, you get boobies, which is never not funny if you're someone like me. But this really took an advance, as you can see from the first bullet point, with the internet. That's when you get this GIF in the bottom right, Baby Cha-Cha, that people just started sending everywhere. There was no context to it. It's not really a joke in and of itself. It was just a funny anecdote that people would send on Rapid. Or the scare of Y2K, which became an actual political and cultural event of make sure you turn off your computers, lock them away. They're going to rise up and our world will end in 2000. I don't think it did, but clearly it was an actual cultural movement that was aside from humor, but still carried that value. We see the next era, the transitory era as I like to call it, began around early 2000s to 2008. Why this time period? Well, In 2003, we get 4chan. In 2004, Facebook. 2005, YouTube and Reddit. And in 2006, Twitter. I'm assuming I don't have to tell the people of today how important social media has become. Never in our history, that I would argue, do we have such connectedness with one another. Never have we been able to talk to so many people like that. Within 5 seconds, I can pick up my phone, add someone on the opposite side of the globe, and have a full conversation with them, assuming they can speak English, with the lift of my arm. Never before has that been possible. And you see this reflected in memes. They went from simple, funny anecdotes to actually being used in conversation. So if you look at the first picture on the left, these are called rage comics. If someone sends you something where they're complaining, you just send back a rage comment of like a funny man crying, like boo-hoo, go cry about it. Or if someone's just rambling on and on and on, like a certain professor who shall remain nameless in the green vest likes to, you can simply say, cool story, bro, and then not have to talk. It's getting across the point that, yeah, that's cool, but I really don't care to listen. You also see things like the Rickroll on the far right. Who knows of Rick Astley's amazing song, Never Gonna Give You Up? There we go. That just became a joke in and of itself. It went from simple one-offs to, hey, look at this cool video. There was a lion that was fighting a tiger, and then a man got involved. You click on the video and you see that. It's more than a simple anecdote, but it's not a full joke yet. It's not a medium in and of itself. Which then leads us to the modern era. This is when the word meme became, in my opinion, the most prevalent it ever has. You see entire jokes being told through simple images. Things like the top text, bottom text format became the main way to tell a joke. It also became a way to get across a political point that we can actually hit a little bit later. But they went from simple anecdotes to going to have context. Now the context is contained within the memes. You need no outside material for most of these. You need nothing else besides the meme itself. If you can look at this and read, you can now understand. As we'll get to again a little bit later, that becomes a very, very important thing. And then today we are in what is called the splintered era. Previously, under the modern era, it was like how television used to be in the 40s and 50s. If any of you know the history of television, you knew there was maybe 3 channels. It started at a certain time of day. It ended at a certain time of day. And again, there was not much variety. So all you had to say was, I'm watching television. There was no what. It was, I'm watching television, because only so much was on at the time. Now, that's hard for my generation to fathom, because we have multiple streaming services that have multiple channels, that have multiple different things you can watch. So it's not, I'm watching TV. It's, I'm watching the Super Bowl on Peacock, on my Roku service, on my Samsung TV. That's how specific we've gotten. And the same thing is with memes, where you have the very basic memes, like on the far right, of, hey dad, put my hair in a bun, and it's literally the hair in the bun, white dad jokes. Things all the way down to what are called deep fried, of if you just look at the horse on the balcony with the word Juan, I would argue that a substantial portion of my generation, if they saw that, would immediately laugh, with no context. That is a strange phenomenon, but it's because thanks to social media, thanks to the changing in algorithm of YouTube, and the creation of TikTok, which has its own algorithm, they funnel, they figure out what you like, what you don't like, give you more of what you like, and help get that very specific, where you now have echo chambers that people can live in and actually figure out what is my specific style. So with all this history, why did it become important? There's a couple things I'd like to hit on. The biggest is it's very telling of our society. I really enjoy comparing our society to the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, where you see massive industrialization, urbanization, and commercialization. You study this period of history, there is no time in the United States where life has changed more, besides maybe with the dawn of the internet, which is where memes come in. You see people taken from the farms and go to cities. The 1920 census was the first time we were ever majority urban, and we have never gone back. You see their entire lives change from working from sunup to sundown to when the boss says so, when the clock says so. And because of that, you see their lifestyle change. How they become who they are changes. Same thing here with the internet, with being able to talk to so many different people. People really want that individuality. What is my thing? What is my humor? What are my memes? You also see, as I hinted at before, a very political and commercial side to this. Politics is generally divided left and right, and I think there's good examples left and right of uplifting versions of memes. If you're on the left, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, after her passing, became synonymous with the left side of the aisle. Be like RBG, notorious RBG, comparing her to a rapper. And on the right, you have the Babylon Bee of feelings now acceptable in math problems. That's clearly not true, but they're using it to come across a humorous point. You also have, on the negative on the left, the V for Vendetta mask has become synonymous with anarchism and destruction. That frog right below it has become synonymous with fascism and racism. Memes are associated with groups now. You can identify certain people's points of views by a cartoon. That is extremely, extremely telling. And lastly, it's a very good way to get into society. No longer do you have to be a rich oligarch or connected to Tammany Hall or have someone in the White House. If you have one of these right here and a minute to come up with a picture and words on that picture, that can be spread to billions in a matter of minutes. That is an insane level of connectivity that you can now accomplish with a picture of a cartoon frog or a bear. That is honestly, I cannot quantify how important that is to society. Because all it takes is one viral image, one viral video, and you could have a mass following. My favorite example of this is the birds not real movement. I absolutely love this. A guy started a movement arguing that birds are government drones as a joke to bring light to misinformation, and millions believe it to this day. That is astonishing to me. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and do you have any questions?
Yeah, I thought birds weren't real.
That's what a lot of people think. From my point of view, from my perspective, I think they're real.
I'm joking. But
I know that's controversial, but I do think they are
I'm
real.
playing on. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So you said that there was advisement to turn off our computers on the last day of '99. Was there any particular reason for doing that? What would have happened if we didn't?
I was not alive back then. I'm sure many of the people that were alive can give you a very strong reason for that. Essentially, yes, there was the belief that they would either spontaneously explode if they were turned on past that point, or that in case you haven't seen the film Terminator, they would rise up in essence because someone could take them over and it would be, to quote Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria from that point on.
Like, the computer systems weren't, I guess, they thought weren't designed to go further during that
Because they were
millennium.
binary.
Yeah.
Binary.
Dr. Trefus knows the answer. She's asking.
I know,
Okay. So then hopefully I got that close enough.
As a matter of fact, Jason Allen was working in a group that was trying to just prevent from, because it was actually the dates were encoded using the last two digits,
Mhm.
because it was 2000, then the question was how we go from the 20th century where we didn't have, when the computer started to evolve.
Yeah.
It was after pretty much the 50s and the 60s. So then how do you go to 2000 and it won't just, the computer, the clocks, will not, because pretty much if the computer clock is not syncing, is not working, then the computer will not work.
And in my opinion, without that connectivity, experts that do know what they're talking about in the pre-meme era could have gone on TV or radio and said, hey, this is not a big deal. This is how it's going to go. It'll be fine, I promise. But because we had such connectivity, the ability to spread information so rapidly via this medium, that the amount of people that were scared and their loudness vastly outweighed the people who are like, this is not a concern.
Okay, so I've got a question. It seems like you can't separate a meme from humor, right? Almost everyone I can think of is funny in some way.
Yeah,
some-
in the modern context, yes.
But there's always something behind the joke, right? There's always ways to put your point of view across beneath that joke or beside it, right? Where do we go? What's the next way of communicating these kind of things? If there's another slide after this slide that you give me in 5 years, what do you think is going to be on?
That is a great question, and one that I was asked previously, and I honestly cannot answer, because if we go back a little bit, how we went from this right here to this, I still can't explain. In case anybody is unaware, that image right there with the E is a picture of Zuckerberg testifying in front of Congress, with Lord Farquaad's head, who's a character from the movie Shrek, with Markiplier's face on it, who is a YouTuber. It has been made grainy with the letter E on it. That is amusing to me, personally, which I find weird because I can't explain why it's amusing. It's just amusing to me. And a vast swath of my generation. I still can't explain how we got from there to there while knowing that's where the progression went. So looking into the future, how we evolve from that into some other form of humor, I'm unaware of. Or if humor is actually at the base, because I don't think humor is really at the base there, but for some reason we're programmed or conditioned at this point to find it funny.
I'd say the knock-knock joke is coming back.
I would love the knock-knock joke to come back.
It's coming back around, y'all. Knock-knock joke.
Yeah, I just adore this. All right, well, other questions for our speaker?
Good job.
Yeah.